Hello and welcome to week 9 of my podcast, I Am Not Worthless. This week we're going to discuss the illusion of premium, how both your brain can trick you into believing something is better quality than it is, and how at a certain point you're paying not for the product. When you go to the grocery store, when you go buy clothing, when you buy electronics, when you buy vehicles, we can be tricked into paying more for something that actually is way less than the sticker price. The first example of this has been done in many places. A classic one is by Caltech. They took a cheap wine, $5 bottle of wine, and put it in two different bottles. The original label and a $45 more fancy, more expensive looking label. And they used MRI machines, MRI brain scanning, to actually see that when they were handed the $45 wine, they not only said, ooh, it tasted better, but their brains reacted more. Lit up like Christmas when they drank the expensive label. So that shows that our brains are literally saying, this is tasting better than this one. Another example is Payless and an advertising company teamed up for a social experiment. They took over a former Armani store in Los Angeles. They filled it with their inventory, what you would find at Payless: $20 shoes, $40 heels, nothing that you would consider luxury, nothing you would consider exotic. And they made it look like the entire store was an Italian luxury brand. And they called it Palessi. They slapped Palessi name all over the place. They put $500, $600 tags on shoes. And they got fashion influencers to come into this store, lining up to want to get in here. And they were paying $600, $700, $800 for shoes that normally sell for 15, 20, 30 bucks. You could actually go online and see this report, and you can actually hear some of these influencers talk about some of these shoes. One person picked up a $20 shoe, $20 boot, and said you could tell it's made with high quality material. Our brains can literally be tricked into thinking that a product is worth way more than it's actually worth. So we need to be careful when we go somewhere and when we look at any product. Because are we looking at the marketing? Is that why we're paying more? Or are we actually paying more for craftsmanship? Another good example that we all have to face is underwear. With clothing, you are looking at a quality versus price graph. If you buy cheap underwear, after a few washes, it's not going to be worth wearing. It's not going to be a usable pair of underwear anymore. So the next time you go out, you buy the middle pair, about 15 bucks a pair, and they last you for a long time. For 10 bucks more a pair, you got longer lasting. However, As we go up in price, you are no longer paying for better quality. At some point, the difference between a $150 pair of underwear and a $15 pair of underwear, there's no difference. It's pretty much the same material, same quality. You're only paying for the name, not the actual item. Another example is HDMI cables. HDMI is a signal that is transmitted from either a computer, television, satellite receiver, all digital. You can go to the store and you could see an HDMI cable for $8-10. It might be Walmart brand, it might be Costco brand, it might be Sam's Club. Name your store brand. And then right next to it you see one that's gold plated, gold wiring, fancy labeling on the box, promises better picture quality. And in reality, it's just the $8 one with the better paint job. Because it's a digital signal, the material it's made of doesn't change anything. You can't improve the signal by changing the color on the outside. Now, before HDMI, yes, you could change picture quality by the type of wiring on the inside. That's why copper wiring was so sought after and so much stolen, because it was used for a lot of cable. And you would then be able to make a lot of money off that because everybody wanted copper wiring for cables. Luckily, we're now in HDMI, so that's not as much of an issue. Another example of paying for the marketing is designer brand makeup cotton pads. Chanel and Dior are two luxury brand names. And they sell cotton pads with their logo on it. And they retail like 20, 30 or more a box. You can go to Sam's Club and literally buy enough cotton pads for several months, if not the whole year, for less than that $20 price tag. Again, you're now paying for the name. If you go to the store, you might see Star Wars brand, Star Wars labeled, decorated frying pans, straws, toothbrushes. Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, Simpsons, etc. The only difference between that product and something that's cheaper is that product has the Disney or Simpsons or whoever's brand name on it. So you're now paying for that. When it comes to things that we buy, we have to make sure that we're looking at both what can we afford, but also how long is it going to last. Yeti coolers, for example, are expensive. But compared to any other cooler on the market, they last a really, really long time. In fact, I've seen people who have basically bought a Yeti cooler and it looks the exact same as it did 5, 10, 15 years ago. There are certain products that you're paying for the actual workmanship, better quality. But in some instances, that, like I said, eventually reaches a plateau and a point where you're not paying for anything. You're paying now for marketing gimmicks and marketing buzzwords. So the question is, have you ever been fooled by a label? Have you ever bought, been given something, and told it's a luxury item, it's going to be amazing, it's wonderful, and then you have something found at Aldi's, Walmart, the dollar store, tastes just the same, if not better, than that luxury item? And there are many more examples of this. I've seen, $10,000 toilets. I've seen $20,000 fridges. Now, I'm not talking about accessibility. Products designed for people who need a product for a medical condition, which I would argue actually means that those products should be cheaper, if not outright free, because those people are already dealing with the condition. So that price tag, we can argue, but also makes not what I'm talking about. You don't need to have Coco Chanel, the double C, on something that you're going to throw away. I don't know very many women who take their makeup off with a cotton pad and put that cotton pad back in a bucket to use again. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast this week. Next week is going to be a biology topic. Stay tuned for that. Enjoy your weekend. Peace out.